This man found evidence that Jesus lived. On January 6, 1982, an archaeologist by the name of Ron Wyatt claimed that he had discovered the Ark of the Covenant. However, what was more interesting was that at the location the Ark was found, he noticed a giant crack above the cave and a dry black substance that seemed to have spilt all over the mercy seat of the Ark. After bringing it back to the lab to get it tested, they discovered that it was blood that contained 24 chromosomes, and somehow it was still alive.
Well, allegedly. Let's take a look at the evidence from Ron Wyatt himself.
Anyway, I have several samples of it that I have taken.
So the first problem here is that you're touching the blood sample with your bare stinking hands and you're breathing on top of it while you're doing it. This, of course, is going to contaminate the sample. So I am 0% surprised that something was found in this other than dirt. The second problem here is that even if you did confirm that this was blood, there is 0% chance that this is Jesus's blood. There were hundreds, maybe thousands of people that were killed above that ground where theoretically Jesus was crucified. So how in the world could you link that blood with one specific person?
I don't profess to know everything. However, there's no way I know that you can get a chromosome count out of dead blood. You can get a DNA and some other things, but not a chromosome count, all right? That's done by living white blood cells. Now then, first of all, in this analysis, I took the blood into a laboratory in Israel. I asked one of the people I work with in antiquities, where is a good laboratory that does reliable work? And they said, such and such, such and such. I took it.
Notice how the laboratory that did the sample test for Ron Wyatt was never named, nor any human being involved in this narrative. It's simply the claims of Ron Wyatt. Moreover, it's much more likely that this was just a contaminated sample and that the 24 chromosomes found, if we can indeed assume there were 24 chromosomes, were likely just from the contamination in the sample.
I said, take some of the white blood cells and put them in a growth medium and keep them at body temperature for 48 hours. The one technician called the other one over there, and then they called the boss over there, and they were talking Hebrew a mile a minute there for a little bit, and they looked at me and they said, Mr. Wyatt, this human blood only has 24 chromosomes in it.
And I bet you'll never guess what has 23 pairs of chromosomes. The human skin cell, which is a somatic cell, also known as a vegetative cell, which is the building block of the human body, has 23 pairs of chromosomes, identical to those in the cells of the brain and eyes, etc. So, yeah, was this the living blood of Jesus Christ, who had one human mother and one divine father, or was this merely the scrapings of skin cells that contaminated a quote-unquote blood sample or a dirt sample? And now let's hear from the Ron Wyatt expert as to the living particles he theoretically found in this blood sample.
Leviticus 17:14 informs us that the life of all flesh is the blood thereof. The French scientist Gaston Naessens designed special microscope components that would allow him to see these particles, which he entitles somatids.
In no way are somatids living particles inside of the blood. In fact, in one part of this article it says, we show that these vibrating particles consist of protein aggregates containing human proteins commonly found in blood, therefore confirming their non-living nature. And of course, if you'd like to read the entire article for yourself, you can find it under pleomorphic bacteria-like structures in human blood representing non-living membrane vesicles and protein particles, in which these non-living small particles of blood are discussed.
For viewing at screen magnifications of up to 30,000x. Under these conditions, the tiny living particles can plainly be seen against a dark background.
No, those are not living particles. That's what we call the Brownian effect. You can get that with just about anything under a microscope. Here are a few examples of Brownian motion using living and non-living particles.
There we go. So I adjust my magnification. I can see my little drops, and they're all jiggling around. And that jiggling around that you see is Brownian motion.
One evening, Ron Wyatt asked me to take a look at some material from a burial cave to see if these tiny particles were present. And as the specimen began to come into focus, thousands of tiny particles, somatids if you will, became plainly visible. Okay, Marinelle's going to take the sample and mix it with sterile water.
Oh, why are you still touching it with your bare hands? And why are you breathing over top of the sample? If there is any traces of DNA in that sample, it is surely from your skin cells that you literally just scraped into that container.
And a test tube there that we've that'll be enough. Okay. And she's going to take some sterile water and a little bit, just some drops, all we need, Marinelle.
Ah yes, don't contaminate the sample with tap water, use sterile water. Never mind the fact that your skin cells and whatever was in your breath is already in that sample.
Okay, so now that we've got the sample on the slide, we'll go ahead and focus into the sample and see what comes up on the screen here. And there they are, thousands of living particles.
And congratulations, you just discovered Brownian motion. This is what you get when you combine a very high-tech toy with a fool.
The results we obtained in no way can be said to be proof that the specimen was the blood of Christ, but based on the location from which the specimen came, we believe it was what Ron believed it was.
This whole silly narrative is based on a series of false assumptions. First, that Christ was actually crucified at that location. Second, that he specifically, out of all the people crucified there, bled enough that his blood went into the ground, but nobody else's blood went into the ground. Only somehow Jesus' blood is there. And then the other assumption is that just because particles move around in liquid or vibrate within a liquid substrate, that they're somehow alive. That is utter nonsense. There is a reason why Ron Wyatt is a laughingstock among biblical archaeologists, because his findings are wildly speculative. He makes sweeping claims based on very little evidence, and his methods are highly unprofessional. On top of that, nothing he does has ever been submitted for peer review research, and he never sends anything out to be analyzed by actual professionals. So the next time someone comes at you saying Ron Wyatt discovered this or Ron Wyatt discovered that, just ask them to politely show you the peer-reviewed publication in which that research has been published, and you'll be more than happy to review it.